Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Wrestling. I'm Steve, joined as always by my partner in crime, the great Doc Gregory, who made it to the show this week.
Yes. I have to apologize for last week. Sometimes, these alien abductions that I have to take care of, they precede anything else I have to do. So, unfortunately, we had to go out to Arkansas last week and abduct another local yokel. So, I apologize for that, but I made it back in time for the closing of the show. So,
Absolutely.
uh, that was all that matters. Was I made a cameo appearance.
You kept the streak alive. That's the most important thing. It's like, during Cal Ripken's Iron Man streak, there were a couple of games where he was just a DH or he just played a couple innings. It still counts. He was still in the game.
Absolutely.
Doc was still in the game last week. So let's, and I guess, by the way, you can read about those Arkansas alien abductions in the National Enquirer or the Weekly
Globe.
World, the Weekly World News, like
The Globe, or
the
yeah,
Globe, yeah.
or as Weird Al Yankovic would say, the Midnight Star.
So let's start as we usually do with looking back at this week's episode of Monday Night Raw. This was the go-home episode of Raw leading into Extreme Rules, which is this weekend. And they hit pretty much all the big beats that they needed to hit. They pushed all their big matches. And they started out in the opening segment last night with the Cena versus Wyatt's feud. And John Cena was in the ring, and they had the cage around the ring. And he was cutting a promo in the cage. And they didn't use the cage for anything else, just to sort of as a nice visual to have Cena in the cage cutting the promo. And then, just when I thought that Cena's interview had kind of gone off the rails a little bit, where he was sort of like whining about the fans voting him into a 3-on-1 match, and he was kind of like, he kept asking the fans, why would you do that to me? It just seemed like he was being kind of a baby about it.
Crybaby, yes, being a big old crybaby.
Yeah, but then it's like all of a sudden this really creepy thing happens where the lights go out, and when the lights come back up, there's like a children's choir, and they're singing Bray, what has sort of become Bray Wyatt's secondary theme song. He's got the whole world in his hands, and actually from that point forward, I actually thought it was a pretty good segment. What did you think about the whole thing there, Doc?
Well, first off, you're ripping off God's theme music right there. By singing that song. That is God's entrance music, and you should not be infringing upon his gimmick like that. So, but all in all, I thought that this was an awesome angle to open up Monday Night Raw. To have one, you have that aspect of John Cena crying like the little itty bitty yellow baby that he is, and it's like, why did you put me against three of them? Don't you like me anymore? Oh. And he's just playing up to that, and trying to at least sell the storyline that the fans are turning against him. And then just to back that up with Bray Wyatt having the children's choir coming out, which I thought was excellent, and I thought they sang very well. And even when Bray Wyatt came in with his own singing, they tuned into him super quick. They were a little bit off there at the beginning, but bam, they got right on with Bray Wyatt, which I thought was really good with the whole aspect of they are followers of Bray Wyatt, and then bring them down, surround the ring. You turn the lights off, and then they're all wearing the sheet mask when the lights come back on, and you have that child sitting in his lap in the rocking chair, and they're rocking back and forth. I thought the visual of this whole angle was beautiful. Whoever had written that, I give you kudos, A+. That was awesome. That was actually great. So I mean, even after Cena has beaten Bray Wyatt already once, I am still very, very much invested in this match. I'm interested. So.
Yeah, me too. I agree with you. I still think it didn't really get good until the kids came out. I think I wasn't a huge fan of Cena's promo, and I think the harder they hit this element of the story where like, oh, Bray Wyatt's dangerous. I mean, I think it would be better if it was more like, look, John Cena and Bray Wyatt are just two guys and they just really don't like each other. I mean, when you try to make it seem like, oh, Bray Wyatt, it's not just his gimmick. He's not just kind of a kooky guy. he's really dangerous. You know, he really could take over the world. I think that gets a little silly at that point. But man, once those kids came out and Bray came out, and like you said, he sort of led them in a sing-along, and it seemed like it took him that first verse to kind of catch on. But then they picked right up after him. And, I mean, yeah, everything was so well staged and so well performed, especially by Bray, and really, really well done. And you need to do that sort of thing, I think, in this feud. And like you, Doc, I'm still way into it. I'm still interested in seeing where it goes. And you need to keep giving Bray these really awesome visual moments and these great segments, because he did lose the match at WrestleMania. I mean, so if from a pure wrestling standpoint, the feud should kind of be over. I mean, they had their month build up. They had their big match at the biggest show of the year. Cena won, so that should be it. But they want to keep this going, and in order to keep it going, they need to give Bray these moments where he can feel dominant and he can feel dangerous, even though he hasn't actually beaten Cena yet. And yeah, I thought it was a really, really good segment overall. Once Cena's first bit kind of got over with, I thought the Bray stuff and the children's choir and the masks and all that stuff, I thought that was just terrific.
Well, I don't think Cena's that great of an actor. We've seen his films. So he really is, for the last decade or more, just used to acting one way, being that superhero. The guy, he hasn't cut his chops at being feeling like almost like he should be the underdog, like he has the odds stacked against him, and like people are finally turning against him, so he's being saddened by that, because he had always stood up to that, that whole fan base that never really caught on to him. He understood that, and he even respected that. But now it's weighed that overtone, weighed down on him so much that more fans are turning against him. That he's got to act like that is a disappointment to him, and that's something new that he's not used to doing. When it comes to drama, like I said, we've seen his films.
Yeah,
John Cena's not that great at acting.
I will say though, the promo that he cut later in the show, the backstage promo he cut with Renee, I thought was really good. Although it kind of undid that character development you were just talking about, where like Cena seems really upset that the fans are kind of turning against him, and the bit with like the children's choir, like the bad acting that he did was to try and get over how disturbed he was by that. And then, 2 hours later, he's just, I've done some thinking, and I'm cool.
Yeah, see, what that reminded me of is the guy that, go back to school, and you had that guy who's been picking on you all day. He's being a real asshole, and he's got the upper hand, and he does it in front of everybody, so that everybody can see it. And you just back away. You tuck your tail and you run. But as soon as nobody else is looking, you run your mouth. And that's what John Cena did.
That's a good point. I didn't think about it that way. Yeah. It's like, okay, he's gone, so let me tell you what I'm going to do to you this Sunday.
Right.
But, he didn't. Yeah, I never thought about it that way. That's a good way to look at it. So after that really very, very good, solid opening segment, we go to the first match, and it's for the tag titles, and it's Ryback versus the Usos. And I thought this turned out to be a pretty good match.
Yeah, I mean, when they said "ooh," I said, "Oh." I was like, it really turned out to be a great match, and I haven't been impressed with Ryback's performance in a ring in quite a while. Maybe that's because he's been such of a dud. I haven't paid a whole lot of attention to him. Yeah. But last night, and this afternoon, I sat down and I rewatched the match when I wasn't so tired, and I really thought that all four guys brought out a solid performance. Now, with that said, one of the Usos was injured during the course of the match, so it was really like a 1-on-2 handicap match. But again, solid performance by all four people. I can't complain about that tag team match. It is what it should have been, and it was solid.
Yeah, and I think particularly Jay of the Usos did a really good job. I think he was the guy. He was the one. Sometimes they're identical twins. It's hard to tell them apart. But I think he was the one who sort of played Ricky Morton. leading up to the finish, where he was sort of in there by himself, and Jimmy was kind of on the floor, knocked out, and he worked a lot of the match just on his own, and did a really, really good job. And then there was like the blind tag. Jimmy tagged himself in, and finished with the Superfly splash. A really good finish, and a really, really terrific tag match.
Yeah, he came down on the perfect plex, and I thought that the impact
Yeah.
and the response was well, better than perfect.
Yeah, it was really good. It was really good. And you know what? I mean, as much as I could still complain about how they've sort of allowed the Rhodes brothers to kind of vanish off the face of the earth, this kind of role, like, is a really good way to use Ryback and Axel. I mean, I think Curtis Axel is not an untalented guy by any stretch of the imagination. I just don't think he has the charisma to be like a big star as a singles guy. But boy, put him in a tag team and push the tag team, I think he would do great.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he does very well in this sort of a role. And so does Ryback. I mean, he's much better as the big guy to get tagged in the tag match than as a guy expected to carry his half of a 15-20 minute singles match.
I hope you're watching this, James Storm.
There was another Adam Rose promo, and those are still fun. That's going to be a huge gimmick when he finally debuts.
Are you a Rosebud?
I tell you what, when I first heard that they were, because I kind of liked Leo Kruger in NXT, and but I think they kind of thought that gimmick wasn't really going anywhere, because he had been doing that for a couple years in developmental, back even before they sort of turned Florida Championship Wrestling into NXT and made it their developmental show. He had been Leo Kruger for a while, and I guess they just kind of decided, you know what, he's never going to get caught up with this gimmick, so they gave him the Adam Rose thing. And I was skeptical at first, but the times I've seen him in NXT and these promos that they're giving him on Raw, I'm totally sold on the gimmick. I think he does a really good job with it.
Yeah, I think his rise from the creation of Adam Rose in NXT going up to WWE and making his debut has been really fast since that character came along. I think they know they are banking on that this is going to be a catchy gimmick, that the fans are really going to get behind it.
Yeah, and like I say, the guy, I forget his real name, but as Leo Kruger, he's been in developmental for years. So I mean, he's as good as he's going to get in the ring, just based on developmental. So the only thing they've changed about him is his gimmick, and it's a good enough gimmick that I guess they figure, we can put this guy on Raw right now. And the first time he makes that entrance on Raw, that thing is going to be huge. I mean, people are going to love that, with all the dancers, the party people following him to the ring, and the theme song that the fans can sing along with. I mean, that's the kind of shit that people love nowadays. And it's going to be big, at least for a while. I don't know if it's going to go anywhere, if he's going to be like main event in WrestleManias with it, but he's going to be hot for at least for a while. It'll give him like a good start,
Well, his real name is Raymond Lepon. He's actually he is from South Africa.
Yeah, I knew he was from South Africa, and I think they acknowledged that Leo Kruger was from South Africa. They didn't use that name, but
I'm completely dumb to Leo Kruger because at that time I wasn't getting any NXT. I didn't follow any of that, so it's like my experience of him is Adam Rose.
Right. Yeah, and I think they're gonna give him a good start with that, I think. Okay, next there was there was a backstage bit with Cesaro and Heyman, and Heyman talking about how disappointed he is in RVD. They're building to Cesaro versus RVD, and so I guess Cesaro is the current Paul Heyman guy, and then RVD is the original Paul Heyman guy, or at least one of the older Paul Heyman guys. And then they go to Sheamus versus Titus ONeil, which starts out with ONeil attacking Sheamus from behind, but then gets turned around pretty quickly, and Sheamus basically just brogue kicks him and pins him in less than a minute.
Yeah, I mean, that was it. That's all you
Yeah.
saw from Sheamus that night. He pretty much got his butt handed to him by Titus and ONeil, and granted, he did jumping from behind, but he laid on quite the beating as Sheamus, and
Yeah.
of course, Sheamus did play it off like he did take a pretty severe beating throughout that whole thing, but just out of nowhere, he musters up the energy to deliver that bro kick, and that was all it needed to take Titus O'Neil down. Which I think it's a good push of strength to show how strong that Titus O'Neil is going to be by literally doing that to Sheamus. But he's not ready to start winning those matches yet, so that's why they still hand it to Sheamus. But I don't think it looked very good for Sheamus. I mean, Sheamus right now, I'm on the fence about him. Seems like he's on a downward slide right now a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I like Sheamus, but a mutual friend of ours, Dan Harris, posted a video to the WWE Network Facebook group that you started a couple of days ago of Sheamus and Wade Barrett and Drew McIntyre from probably 7 or 8 years ago, if not longer, when they were over in the UK wrestling for Irish Whip Wrestling. And the thing that struck me about that video is that if you watch that and you see Sheamus come in about halfway through and cut a promo, he's almost exactly the same back then in a completely different company as he is now. Like, he really hasn't, he hasn't really grown or developed as a performer. I mean, obviously he has a little. He's not bad doing what he does, but it seems like we've pretty much seen everything that he can do. And if he's not at that top level now, he probably is never going to be. Whereas a guy like Titus feels like he still has room to grow, But
yeah, and I look forward to Titus O'Neil growing. I think that man has a huge amount of potential. We all know that he can be funny. We know that he is good on the mic. He's got the height, and he's got the physical stature. I think that if you give him the ball and you run with it, you got to cut his teeth on some superstars for a little while. I understand that, but if you give him the ball and run with it, I think you could have a successful a wrestler there. I think Titus could be very good for the company.
I agree completely. I think there's a huge upside to Titus. I think he's a big, scary looking dude, and he can talk. I mean, how do you fuck up that?
Right.
He's like a perfect professional wrestler. He's incredibly impressive looking, and the guy can talk like crazy. So, let me check my Raw. Next was the Hugh Jackman segment, right? With
No. Oh my God.
Yes,
we must talk about this. We must talk about this.
I do want to talk about this actually, because even though I know that probably a lot of people hated this segment, and there were parts of it that I hated too, there was at least one part of it that I really liked, and it wasn't any one specific thing that happened. But I'll tell you the part of it that I really liked.
All right, there was a part I liked about it too, and I'll let you know. So let's talk about it.
Okay, awesome. So I know it's just like a commercial for the new X-Men movie. That's the only reason Hugh Jackman's there, and he comes out and he's in there with Dolph, and of course last time Hugh Jackman was on the show, he potatoed Dolph Ziggler in the jaw. He was just supposed to distract him and kind of give him a shot in the face so that Zack Ryder could beat him, and apparently he actually hit him really fucking hard and fractured his jaw.
He Mayweathered the bitch.
And but everybody loves Hugh Jackman, so they invited him back next time he had a movie to push, and here he is, and he does a good. I think Jackman does a good job. Hugh Jackman's one of those guys who is legitimately, I think, a really terrific, serious actor. He's also a great action hero, and he's good at playing to crowds. He's good. I guess that probably comes from his stage training. He's just pretty much good at everything. And if he wasn't so cool, you'd probably hate his fucking guts, because he just seems like he can just do everything. And him and Dolph sort of tease, a little tension between the two of them, but then they shake hands, and it seems like everything's fine. And then Damien Sandow comes out, dressed in what I can only describe as Magneto pajamas,
like adult underoos.
Yeah, he has just the worst, cheapest. He just basically went to a comic book convention and got a Magneto hoodie, and has that and red tights and comes out and announces himself as Magneto and gets in the ring with Dolph and Hugh Jackman and cuts a promo on the two of them pretty much in character as Magneto. And it ends, he has some back and forth with the two of them, and then it ends with him declaring that he's going to show them the power of magnetism. And he holds out his hand, Magneto style, like he's, going to work some mojo on Hugh Jackman. And Hugh Jackman plays along for a second, pretends that like the microphone is being pulled toward Magneto, and then he says, "Nope, I was just kidding," and he punches him and he hip tosses him over, and that's the end.
Well, let me correct you there.
Yeah, okay, did I? Yeah.
Yeah, he threw the microphone into his chest. And
that's right.
When he looked up, then he hip tossed him.
Yeah.
And then Dolph Ziggler got a hold of him. Now, also, too...
That's right. Yeah, Dolph zigzagged him. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and also, too, when he had his power of magnetism going, the WWE was nice enough to have that noise playing in the background.
I know, because that's what magnetism sounds like.
Exactly.
Okay.
I thought it was silly, honestly, because, I mean, Damian was that guy on SmackDown last week that was... ultimately the loser to the whole Shield versus the 11 thing. Yeah. So I thought that was a bad place for him then. And then he comes out Monday night, and I got to tell you, the guy's a team player. Because there's nothing this man won't do. I don't know if he's enjoying it or not, but he goes out there and he does his job.
Absolutely.
And with his head held high. He looked absolutely ridiculous, but I love that he upheld to the gimmick and the two occasions where he looked right at him and went, "Silence!" Because that's Damien Sandow coming out, and I love it when he does that, when he just yells at you, tells you silence. So, but for the most part, yeah, it was what it was supposed to be. Was Hugh Jackman to come out and promote his new movie, because next year I hear that the entire X-Men crew are being inducted into the Celebrity Hall of Fame for Hugh Jackman's continuous visits on Monday Night Raw every time a X-Men movie comes out.
They might as well.
Yeah, but it is what it was. Dolph Ziggler. I don't think the fans really took it too serious. I think they were mostly excited to see Hugh Jackman in that whole sketch, because they don't really care about Dolph's right now. And they really don't. Honestly, I think there's only a few of us left that care about Damien and take him seriously. Yeah. I think that has that potential. That's guys that, like us who not just see a character, we study, we know what that character can do. We know what that man's capable of doing. So it's like, I don't think there's many fans left for Damien Sandow, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree with you. He does have a lot of potential, and he is. I really think he's a good talker. He's a good worker. I think he could be a lot bigger than he is, and hopefully there are people in the company that see that and are just waiting for the right spot to put him in. But okay, well, you said you liked one thing about this segment. What was the one bit that you liked about it?
Oh, him yelling silence.
Him yelling silence? Okay.
It made me giggle both times. I'm sorry, I did.
Yeah, he I'll tell you what, the thing that I liked about it was the fact that all three of them, and particularly Dolph and Damien, because they're the actual employees of the company that were there, but Hugh Jackman added to it as well. They all three seemed really comfortable, and they were playing off of each other, and like Damien yelling silence, and Dolph getting a few lines in here and there. They seemed like they were relaxed, and they were talking from their own hearts and their own minds. And yes, they were there to do a skit, and they were having fun, but they weren't like nervous about remembering their lines or trying to act. They seemed like they were having a good time, and I really liked that part of it. And really, to me, the worst part of it wasn't Sandow in the Magneto costume. It was that it's like they just had no ending to it. Because Sandow trying the magnetism thing with the sound effects and everything, like there's just no way to suspend disbelief for that. Mm-hmm. Like what was Damien Sandow's plan? Like if Hugh Jackman hadn't pretended to have the microphone pulled toward him, well, what was supposed to happen? There was no logic to that at all. There was nothing was supposed to happen. And that's the part that I didn't really like about it.
Well, I
But
never really thought about this, but we're talking about Damian Sandow. Okay, you're talking about suspending disbelief, right?
right, right.
Well, what does Damian Sandow profess to be in the WWE? So who the hell you think he was fooling? Like he didn't know that he was like playing some games with them. Really? Yeah, he's supposed to
Yeah,
be like the man of mass intellect. So why would he have went out there and done something so dumb?
right. Maybe he's just going nuts.
Maybe
Maybe
not getting a push.
he's not getting pushed, so he's just starting to lose it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
when smart people go crazy, you need to watch out. I'm talking Hannibal here, you know.
That's right. Smart people can do some crazy shit when they go crazy. Okay, so next was a one-on-one match with Jack Swagger and Cesaro. The Real Americans Explode, like they should have called it. And I actually thought it was a short match, but I liked the fact that the finish was a German suplex, which you don't see very often. Heyman and Zeb Coulter kind of got into it on the outside, and there was a distraction, and Swagger looked at what was going on outside the ring like an idiot, like I guess every wrestler sort of has to do, even though it makes no sense. Why would you ever do that if you were in a fight with somebody? But he's distracted by Heyman and Coulter going at it outside the ring, and Cesaro sneaks up behind him, waist locks him, and German suplex with a bridge, 1, 2, 3. So a short match, but I like seeing the German suplex used for a finish every once in a while.
I tell you, Paul Heyman, man, never, ever, ever grab a man by his mustache. It is freaking rude, and it hurts like hell. You know, it's basically being almost fish hooked without being fish hooked. So yeah, he reached up there. It's lucky that Paul Heyman don't have much hair to grab onto anymore. But yeah. And speaking of hair, Jack Swagger was sporting, I don't know if he had that on Friday night, but he's sporting a new haircut there. I don't know who he went to see about getting a haircut, but man, that's quite the chop he got there.
Yeah, took a little bit off the sides there.
I know, it's almost like the Marine Dennis the Menace kind of look. It's still a little long on the side, and kind of falls down like he's about ready to cause some trouble to Mr. Wilson.
They should have him come out with a slingshot stuck in
his back pocket.
Yeah. I don't know. Zeb could pass for like a really, really angry, racist Mr. Wilson. Mr. Wilson, he's always sitting on his porch yelling about all the Mexicans moving into the neighborhood. That kind of Mr. Wilson. So next was another singles match, another short match. Del Rio versus Cody Rhodes. And this was mostly just to sort of continue to sow those seeds of dissension between Cody and Goldust. Goldust there were a few points where Goldust seems like he was trying to help Cody out or give him tips or coach him a little bit, and Cody was just sort of like, get out of my face. And Cody lost the match. Del Rio hit him with the kick and the arm breaker, and that was it. So it looks like they're once again sort of starting to tease Cody and Goldust breaking up, because I guess they just can't think of anything else to do with them.
That's exactly how I said it would go down too. Would be that Cody Rhodes would start feeling a little animosity or anger toward the constant losing, and he would be the one to turn. He's going to be the heel. Obviously, he's the one with the future, and he'll enter that feud with Goldust. And unfortunately, hate to say it, but this is probably going to be the last feud we're going to see for Goldust. So hopefully it goes well, because I'm sure Cody will win it ultimately. But Goldust after that, he may be regulated to main event until he just disappears. Who knows? But it's hard to say. Dusty still is working there, and Cody's working there. They can make it a family affair and keep him around for things.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully, I guess it all depends on what Dustin wants to do, but I mean, hopefully, even after his in-ring run here is over, they could at least find a job for the guy backstage and he could be an agent or something. I mean, I think he did that before, and that he quit. I don't know if he didn't like it or if it didn't work out. I know he had some personal issues to deal with at some point, but I mean, you think he's had such a good run this last time through as Goldust, especially back in October. Just September, October, when they were doing the Rhodes Brothers thing to start with, and they won the titles. I mean, he's just, he's done such a great job. It's hard to imagine him just, okay, thanks, Dustin, bye.
Been real.
Yeah, exactly. Because yeah, like you said, I mean, Christ, fucking Dusty still works for him. They could find something for Dustin to do. And I tell you what else they should do. They should induct that son of a bitch into the Hall of Fame next year. If he finally does retire or go away from the in-ring stuff for a while, Goldust or Dustin Rhodes or one of those personas, that guy should be in the Hall of Fame.
I'd imagine it would be Goldust for the WWE.
That
way, like they're doing with Razor Ramon, they can induct the Rhodes family.
Yeah. Okay, next was Rusev versus Xavier Woods. And this really wasn't that much of a match because R-Truth ran in and they threw the match out. It was a DQ. And they just kind of, I guess, just to build to the pay-per-view. I think, is it a 2-on-1 at the pay-per-view?
Yes,
I think it's Rusev versus Xavier Woods and R-Truth at the pay-per-view. And they kind of just knock Rusev out of the ring, and then Lana sort of pulls him back and tells him to save it for later.
But see, I want to get into the minor fears of the white man when it came to this fight right here. See,
okay.
This is why a white man doesn't really want to get into it with a black man, because if the white man has the upper hand like Rusev had, and although he's Bulgarian, so he can get away with it because he's not an American white man. Always another black man got to jump into it. Why? I mean, R-Truth, what were you thinking, man? That was definitely a heel move right there, jumping in and interfering with that match. You got two good guys going against what should be the badass man, and R-Truth pulls off a heel maneuver. I think it would have been better if he put him in the clutch, pulled it tight, kept him in it, and then R-Truth stormed the ring, and to push the match coming up this Sunday. I thought that what he did was just way too early. He shouldn't have jumped in there that early, and I kind of took offense to it. That's why I made that little joke.
I agree. It was a little, like you say. I mean, Rusev hadn't really even done anything. Like if he had like attacked Woods before the bell or something, or he was just like beating the shit out of him, and like you say, he put him in the camel clutch, and he was just refusing to let him go. Yeah, sure. Then Truth can run in and save his buddy, and it makes sense. But yeah, to just have Truth run in just for no reason, just be like, oh yeah, well fuck you, and just run in and jump on him. I mean, yeah, it does. It makes Truth seem more like a heel, or at least like an idiot. I mean, I guess we're not supposed to think that the guys even care who wins the matches anymore. But I mean, he just cost his buddy that match. His tag team partner lost that match because he ran in and had to fuck with him.
Mm-hmm. Well, the more I see Rusev, I tell you, from NXT, because I've been watching a little bit more with him on NXT, still running over there, and his brief domination in the WWE so far. I gotta tell you, man, I'm something about the guy I like. I'm just impressed with him. I like the way he holds himself. I love his ring gear. I even love the fact that he's got, like I said, his trunks pulled up like underneath his titties.
Yes.
Like he's 90 years old. But he just got that mean look, like I'm gonna tear your damn head off. I love it.
I really like him too. I like the way he moves. I like the sort of Muay Thai, like having his hands up high when he moves, and he just seems like, they talk about how Cesaro is a throwback, but Rusev seems like the throwback to me, like one of those big solid guys that they would have had in the WWF in the 70s, to build up to fight Bruno, just like a big, thick, tough looking dude, just built like a brick shithouse. Who would just run people over until he finally got beat by the hero, and I really like him.
I like guys like that where they got muscle, but you don't see muscle definition.
Yeah,
they're just real big and thick.
Yeah, and it seems like they're sort of moving a little bit more in that direction with the guys than to like the sculpted bodybuilder guys. Like even someone like Cesaro, who is not thick really, but is in amazing shape, but he doesn't look like, like a sculpted bodybuilder type of guy. He just looks like athletic, Next was a tag team match, Los Matadors versus two of the three members of 3MB, Drew McIntyre and Heath Slater. And apparently the pre-show match at Extreme Rules is going to be Hornswoggle versus El Torito. that'll encourage people to tune in, I guess.
And the very first ever WLC match.
Yes. Yeah, and so this match ends with Heath Slater pinning one of the Matadors, and then Hornswoggle runs in and does a dive onto the Matadors, and they just they're just building to this the midget match or the mini match, I guess I should say, at the pre-show for the pay-per-view, which I don't really think anybody cares about.
Yeah, and honestly, I didn't care about this matchup either, but let me just say that I was stunned. I was stunned that 3MB, that I actually witnessed them winning a match, because I don't get to see it very often. So it was nice to see them win a match. I've seen the Los Matadores guys win their fair share of matches here, so it was nice for them to throw a 3MB one in. And it really was strictly so they can push the WLC matchup. Yeah. So you win a match so they can push the midgets.
Yeah, well, hey, a win is a win. Yeah, he got to hit his finish and everything. So next is this segment between Stephanie and Daniel Bryan, where she wants to apologize to Bryan for the beatdown that Kane put on him, the attempted murder, really, where he got pile drove 3 times outside the ring, and he does look. He comes out and he does have a neck brace on, so
But doesn't look that bad, actually. Considering
he's walking around, he doesn't seem like he's in pain. He's got a neck brace, so that's something. So there you go. We've gone from in 30 years, we've gone from Ricky Steamboat gets DDT'd on the outside by Jake the Snake, and he almost dies, and then they feud about it for a year.
For 6 weeks.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what it is, Steve. You know what it is?
What? What is it?
Science. It's science. See, that's what's happening here. Is that modern medicine is much better than it was in Ricky Steamboat's day. So you can get up after breaking your neck after a day and get back to work.
That is a great point. It's modern medicine. Mm-hmm. It's modern medicine.
Trust in your doctors, people. Thank a doctor every now and again.
Absolutely. The WWE has the greatest doctors in the world. They were able to get to Daniel Bryan so fast and get him into treatment right away. So even though he had been subjected to 3 pile drivers on the outside of the ring by a man twice his size and had been thrown around like a rag doll for 20 minutes, it's okay. He's fine. He's up. He's walking around. He's cleared to wrestle at the pay-per-view, and all he has to do is wear himself a little foam neck brace. So
not even one staple. Not even one staple in that man. No black eyes, no nothing. He got an ass whooping. You know what, WWE, I'm sorry, but you have a nice, look at the Divas. You have a great makeup crew backstage. You know what an ass whooping looks like? Come on, make some black eyes out there from time to time. That'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah, because, I mean, if they're going to go to those lengths and they're going to have the guys get beat down so brutally to put heat on the matches, it does kind of take it away, if the next week the guy comes out and he's basically fine. Mm-hmm. It reminds me of I think we mentioned it on the show before when they back on Raw in 1993 when they made a big deal about Brutus the Barber Beefcake can't get hit in the face because his face was held together by screws and plates, and if he gets hit in the face, his face will just fucking explode. And then he got hit with the briefcase by Money Incorporated, and Vince McMahon sells it like he just saw a murder happen. He's like, oh my God, and then at the end of the show or at the beginning of the next show, one of those, they basically come out and they're like, oh yeah, he's fine.
Mm-hmm. Luckily.
Yeah. Well, damn. You kind of acted like it was a big deal, but I guess not. You know. So anyway, so Bryan comes out in his neck brace, and Brie is with him, and Stephanie apologizes. Says she's very sorry, that all she wanted to do was to try and give Kane some backbone, and she had no idea that he was going to put his mask back on and become this evil killing machine, and and she's very sorry. And of course, Daniel doesn't accept the apology. He says that she's full of crap, and Stephanie says, well, just come on down to the ring, and I'll tell you to your face. And Bryan says, I'm not coming down to the ring, so Kane can jump in and, attack me again. So Steph, to make it up to him, says, okay, well, how about I give Brie a title shot? You're not cleared to wrestle yet. You have to wait until Sunday, but you can come down to the ring with your wife, and I'll give her a Divas title match. So Bryan sort of says, okay, fine. So we go from that straight into Brie versus Paige in a match where the Divas title is on the line. And the match lasts like 2 minutes because Kane comes up through the ring and tries to pull Brie down into the ring, and she gets away, and Bryan comes in, and they kind of have a fight. And to me, the really crazy part of this was that Kane comes up out of the ring, and then he eventually climbs up out of the hole, and he's like fighting with Bryan and with Brie like out of the hole, but then he gets back in the hole, and he tries to pull her in again. It's like, what are you just gonna hang under the ring with her? Like, what is your? You haven't thought this through very far, have you?
No, not really, Steve. Because this just in, Kayfabe News just reported that the location of Hell has been reported and found under the WWE ring.
Oh wow! I did not know that.
That's where it is. So he was apparently trying to drag her back to Hell.
Back to Hell, where I guess he lives when he's not working as director of operations.
You can look that up at Kayfabe News. It's on there, an actual report about that.
Another breaking story, a scoop by the good folks at Kayfabe News. It does make sense, because otherwise, why the hell is Kane getting back in the hole and dragging her back under?
Yeah, only monsters rip through the bottom of the ring, so that there is evidence.
You know that he's evil because he came up through the ring. Right. And I think apparently the match between Bryan and Kane at the pay-per-view is an Extreme Rules match. So that, and look, I mean, it was goofy. I don't really like when they do the goofy stuff with Kane, or when they used to do it with The Undertaker. Like the first time that a guy came up through the ring, it was kind of awesome because it was a shock. But now they've done it 3 or 4 times. It's just sort of like, oh, they're doing that, But I do think it's good because they're really building up Kane as a monster, and I know that Kane's not getting the title. So at least I would think there's no possible way it makes any sense at all for Kane to get the title. So Bryan's going to win on Sunday, so he's going to beat this incredible monster. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, puts a strong opponent up against him because right now the other Batista, Randy Orton, even Triple H, they're occupied with getting the Shield over. Right. So it looks like the Authority have all the top matches at Extreme Rules. But yeah, I think it's good for Bryan. He should absolutely win this match. I believe that's the way it's going to go. So when predictions come around, you and I are going to bet the same way. This one probably will go the same way. Hey, I tell you though, with that ladies match, I did, with as short as it was, I enjoyed seeing Paige. She showed a lot of aggression in the short amount of time that she got to work out there, and she looked good. So I think that bringing her up to the main roster at this point, even stripping her of the NXT title, because I would like to see that on Charlotte. Now that Ric Flair is back, I would like to see Paige hold on to this belt for a while and maybe make something out of that Divas title.
Yeah, I would like to see that too, especially since we would be, they had it on AJ for a real long time. And I think she kind of rehabilitated the belt at least a little bit, because she seemed like she really cared about being champion, and she had it for so long, and she actually wrestled and defended it. Unlike Dean Ambrose's U.S. title, she was actually having matches and defending the title. And go straight from one long reigning champion to another. Let Paige keep it for a long time and have her wrestle, have her defended on Raw and SmackDown and have her defended on the pay-per-view and, try to build the matches. I mean, I think it's great, and I think Paige is good enough to carry it that way. I think she's a terrific wrestler, and she's young. She'll be around for a while, and she's a good, person to build that division around. Next up was, first of all, there was that backstage promo with Cena that we mentioned earlier, where he kind of, gets his shit together and tells Bray he says he's gonna buy Bray a mule, and he's gonna teach it to sing so that Bray can sing with it, and I don't know. But he had good fire in the promo. I don't know what the fuck he was talking about with the mule shit, but it was a good promo. And he's gonna put his fist in his face and his foot in his ass. So okay, cool. I can understand that. And then was the finals of the tournament, the Intercontinental #1 Contender tournament. And this, I really liked this tournament. I wish they had given it a little bit more attention after the first round. It seemed like the last 2 weeks they just sort of put it out there and they didn't really push it very much. But this was the finals. It was Bad News Barrett versus RVD, and they had about a 10-minute match, 12-minute match. And it ended with some interference on both sides. Jack Swagger ran down, Cesaro ran down. They both sort of interfered in the match, and it ended up with RVD. First, he ducks the bull hammer, and it looks like he's going to hit the frog splash, but then he splashes Barrett's knees. Wade gets his knees up, and then he actually hits him with the bull hammer. So Barrett wins. He pins RVD, and he wins the tournament. And now the match at the pay-per-view is Bad News Barrett versus Big E for the Intercontinental title. And based on what we see after the match with RVD and Cesaro and Swagger getting into it, it looks like it's going to be a three-way between those three at the pay-per-view, which is something I thought they might be doing. I mentioned last week that they might do something like this because there's 5 guys all sort of mixed up in this, and I had thought maybe they would do a three-way for the title match, but it looks like they're going to do one-on-one for the title match and then just do a three-way with RVD and Cesaro and Swagger, just kind of sort out the Heyman versus Coulter guys stuff.
Yeah. Have two. You have the Heyman guy, you have the Coulter guy, and you have the guy who used to be a Heyman guy. I know. Yeah. I think it's a good matchup. I'd like to see it, a triple threat. I mean, I'm not a big, huge triple threat fan because, I mean, it's just odd man out. You're the what am I thinking of? The third ring or the spare tire or the they got to even up. They got to have 2 against 2, 1 against 1. Triple threats, even as a referee, they're a little bit difficult to watch for me.
Yeah.
Now, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say. Well, we'll do our predictions for the show here in a minute after we finish recapping Raw for our Extreme Rules predictions. But since we're on the subject, what do you think? We'll just talk about this one right now about Wade versus Big E. Do you think Wade's winning the Intercontinental title?
I think Big E's stale.
That's what I thought.
I don't think he's got what it takes to go the long distance with that title. I think the Bad News does. Crowd seems to be actually behind him in a certain way. One way or the other, he's getting a response from the crowd. You're either with him or you don't like him, but he's getting a response one way or the other. Unlike Big E, I think that he's dead in the water.
Yeah, that's how I would read it too. I really, really like Big E, but they just haven't. He hasn't done anything for months. He's just kind of been standing around with the title. And
you're not a good guy, Big E. You're not a good guy.
Yeah, and Barrett is hot. The Bad News thing has actually worked on him. It's gotten him over since he's come back to start wrestling. I mean, they got him over with the Bad News gimmick for a couple of months, coming out and insulting people and standing on the giant podium, and he's hot. So yeah, I think he's going to win. I think he should. Okay, next was the main event. It was Orton versus Roman Reigns, but before we get the match, Evolution cuts a little promo in the ring talking about how, basically the Shield has to go through them. They're the ultimate, force in the WWE. They're still around. They're powerful. They're dominant, and they're going to take out the Shield because the Shield has to adapt or perish and all the evolution stuff. And then Ric Flair comes out, as you mentioned earlier, Doc. Ric Flair makes his return, and I don't know. Rick seemed a little drunk here.
He did seem drunk.
Did you think Rick was a little drunk?
I have seen Ric Flair drunk up close and personal, and I have got to say he just looked drunk. He was slurring over his words, and he was having way too much fun.
Yeah, and it wasn't that great of a promo. I mean, especially at the end, he was building up to this big moment, this big turn at the end where he sort of talks up evolution and he talks about how great evolution is, but then he turns and he says, well, he's actually here to talk about how great the Shield is. Mm-hmm. And it felt like when he said that, he should have been more fired up. I felt like if he had been in like crazy Ric Flair mode and he had gone like, I'm talking about the Shield, woo! You know what I mean? Like, that would have been, people would have been like, oh, yes! But as it was, he was just sort of like, I'm not talking about you guys, I'm talking about these guys. And then he shook their hands and he left. Mm-hmm. And it really didn't get much of a reaction. Like, the live crowd really didn't do anything. And
yeah, it was just like, it was just like played his music, he came down and gave a little testimonial and walked right off. No purpose was necessary besides, hey, it's Ric Flair. We all know Ric Flair. He comes down, he says a few words, and shakes a few hands, and you pay him $15,000, and he walks home.
And yeah, thanks for coming, Rick. He did look like he was having a good time, but he looked drunk and he looked kind of tired. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't think he quite hit a home run with that promo like I think they were hoping he would. But then we get to the match, and the match really isn't that long. The match ends up in a big disqualification type thing after about 5 minutes where everybody runs in. And at first it looks like Evolution is going to put the beat down on the Shield, but then the Shield comes back. Seth Rollins kind of comes in and hits, I think, or Batista with a high knee, and the Shield kind of take everything back. And it ends with the Shield in the ring and Evolution backing up. And that's the end of the show. So the really heavy push towards the six-man, the Evolution versus Shield six-man. And really by the end of, it was only 5 minutes, but by the end of the match and by the end of the show, it really didn't even matter that Ric Flair had even been there. Mm-hmm. I mean, it really didn't make any difference at all.
Yeah, you forgot.
yeah, exactly. Because he was,
or you were really either forgot he was there, or you were looking up the ramp the whole time, wondering when he was going to come back down the damn ramp and show his true allegiance.
Yeah, and he was just sort of like, "Oh, thanks for coming, Rick." Mm-hmm. So, not a bad episode of Raw, I didn't think, but just kind of cold for like a go-home show. I think maybe that. Because the stuff with the Shield and Evolution isn't bad, and I'm looking forward to that match. But it just seemed like, it's the same thing they did last week, pretty much.
The fan base isn't used to seeing that. You're older fan base like me, and we know the way it used to be that storylines, because they only had 4 major pay-per-views a year, so like storylines would get drawn out, and I think that's what they're trying to get back to. It's just it's hard to do that because the attention span of a human being is so small anymore. They get bored so quickly. I don't know if they can go back to that format, although I think that's what they're trying to do with certain storylines.
Yeah, well, it's tough because, not just the attention span of people in general, but the wrestling business, especially like at the WWE level, it's just so into that monthly cycle now, where like storylines last for a month and that's it, and they're just so used to that, and it's been that way for so long. I agree with you. I do think they're trying to stretch out some storylines. I do think they would like to do some more longer form storytelling, but it's they have to have that big match every month, and it has to feel like, oh, this is it, but then they still have to be able to pick it back up the next night on Raw and say, nope, that wasn't it. We're going to keep going, and it's tough to kind of find that balance sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, the Bray Wyatt, John Cena, that's going on now for 2 pay-per-views. The story's been told for Probably more than 2.5 months. I'd say they say what 10 weeks and 20 programs. So 20 programs
Yeah.
have been telling the story to you. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess with some of them, you got with that one, it's they got your interest in on that one, so you're drawn into it. It's like with the evolution one, it's I don't know, creating something of old. It's like bringing DX back. It's exciting, but really, we don't. Who cares? Uh,
Yeah.
I think that's what evolution is. We'd rather see the Shield go strong, and don't get me wrong. I think Shield's gonna be a force to reckon with in the future of the WWE. I don't think at Extreme Rules it's gonna be their day.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess a lot of it depends on. I guess a lot of it depends on how long Batista's hanging around.
Well, he's
Because
taking a break after
they
this
say
guy.
he's taking a break. So does that mean that Evolution wins and then maybe they bring in a third guy, or Flair turns and rejoins the group? Or does that mean that Evolution loses and Dave takes his vacation and comes back in time for SummerSlam? I'm not really sure. Um,
Yeah, it's hard to
well,
say. Hard to say with that because he's got to go and do his promos for Guardians of the Universe, which
yeah.
I'm a mark for that one. So I definitely want to go see that film. I think it's going to be really good. It looks like it's going to be a more humorous type super film, which
Yeah.
is up my alley. So that's what he's got. He's got to go do that. And honestly, if I got to go do some movie stuff, I'll have to cancel out of wrestling business for that because it's whatever. I'd rather do that than the wrestling thing.
Right.
I'd rather do my movie thing than my wrestling thing.
Yeah. Well, I think so would most wrestlers. When it gets right down to it.
Of course, wrestling's never made me stand for 3 hours bare naked, barefooted, out in the middle of woods in the snow. But
Well, not yet. But
not yet.
after a few people see that movie, who knows? Who knows what you'll be getting booked to do? You might be getting calls, hey Doc, what do you want me to do, ref or ring announce? Oh no, we have something else planned for you. Come to
And that's all you're getting. That's all you're getting on what I'm doing these days. Of course, that's all I've done so far.
Yeah. Yeah. They'll see soon enough. It'll be out there. Okay, so before there's this thing that's kind of been going around the internet wrestling community for the last week or so. The WWE's official website put up this list of the 50 greatest talkers in wrestling history, and it stirred a little bit of controversy because Dusty Rhodes tweeted about how he was not happy at all about his placement on this list. So I want to talk about that. But before I do that, I want us to go ahead and we'll talk about our picks for the pay-per-view. Okay. Extreme Rules is this Sunday, and so far I see 8 matches announced, including the pre-show match. So I'll just run through them one at a time, and we'll make our picks for who we think is going to win. So first is the pre-show match. It's El Torito versus Hornswoggle. As Doc said, it's being billed as a WLC match. I think El Torito is winning this. What do you think?
I think El Torito is the hot commodity right now. I think he gets over with the fans. I think that would be more pleasurable. Although it's nice to see Hornswoggle doing something other than being someone's gimmick. He's actually in there doing some wrestling, which I think is awesome that they're giving us. Even though it's on the free pre-show, they're giving us a midget match. That is awesome. So I'm stoked about it. So I don't care who wins. I'm glad you gave it to me. Just to be devil's advocate, I'll go with Hornswoggle. What the hell? I think it's going to be. Okay. I think it's going to be the Dorito guy. But I'll go.
The Dorito guy. I love it. Okay.
Alfarito, or I don't know.
Alfarito. Next is the triple threat match that we discussed a moment ago. It'll be Jack Swagger versus RVD versus Cesaro. I'm calling that one for Cesaro. What do you think?
I'm thinking it's going to break down between Cesaro and Swagger so we can keep that feud going on, and Rob Van Dam's going to pull off a win
Oh, interesting.
while they're not paying attention. So little things
Okay.
to get you when you're not paying attention.
Interesting. Okay. Um, Next is the handicap match: Alexander Rusev versus Xavier Woods and R-Truth. I think Rusev is winning that one.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Rusev is an unstoppable force right now. That's the way they're going to push him, and he's gonna walk through these guys.
Yeah. I think that's the only reason it's on the card. Uh, Paige versus Tamina for the Divas Championship. I think Paige is going over there. What do you think, Doc?
Hmm. Yeah, I have to agree with you. She's got the belt. She just got the belt, and the crowd seems to love that. And they're not going to take it off. They're not going to take it off over that quickly. So I think that you got to give her those good title defenses. I think Tamina's good choice because it looked like she was in a position where she was getting ready to get a title match against AJ, so it's nice that she's one of the first ones to get one at a pay-per-view. But I think that she's going to fall to Paige. Yeah, Paige is going to win.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I see it too. I do think if there's a little tiny bit of doubt, it's because I know that AJ is taking some time off, but apparently she's coming back next month. And Tamina versus AJ for the title is like an automatic story. So if they did put the belt on Tamina, it would make sense in that way, even though it would seem like they took it off Paige really quickly. So that's just a little something to think about. But I think Paige is going to win. Next is the Intercontinental title match. The tournament winner, Bad News Barrett, versus Big E. We talked about this one already. I think that Barrett is going to win. You said you thought the same thing.
Yep, yeah, I do believe it is time for Barrett to reclaim his stature toward the top of the ranks. You know, it's been long enough listening to him up there presenting himself with his bad news, and since he's got back in the ring, he's really looked good, and I look forward to him being the new Intercontinental Champion. Big E doesn't do it for me.
Yeah, and that Bad News Barrett gimmick is perfect to have a title too, because he's the kind of guy who would want to rub it in people's faces. You know, you could come out with the title over his shoulder. I've got some bad news.
You thought you were going to have an Intercontinental title match tonight? Well, I got some bad news for you.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's a perfect heel gimmick for it to have a title. So yeah, he's gonna win, and I hope he does. He deserves it. Okay, next is the rematch between Bray Wyatt and John Cena. This inside of a steel cage. This was actually probably the toughest call for me. I mean, I want to call it for Bray because he lost the last one, and it feels like if they're doing two, they would do three.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like they wouldn't stop it just at two. So I'm going to call it for Bray. I'm going to officially say Bray is going to win. But if Cena wins, it would not surprise me.
Right.
But anyway, what do you think?
I'm going with Bray this time too for the exact same reasons. I think that this feud is strong. There is no reason to pull the plug on it yet. Let's milk it for as long as it's going to go. Let's give Bray the win this time and push this bitch to SummerSlam.
Wow, you think they'll actually push it all the way to SummerSlam?
I would love to see them push this all the way to SummerSlam to the demise of John Cena.
You know, that'd be cool. I'll tell you what, Cena does have kind of a tradition of putting people over at SummerSlam. I mean, he put CM Punk over, like, I think 2 SummerSlams in a row, and he put Bryan over last SummerSlam, so, you know, maybe he'll put Bray over this SummerSlam. Next on the show is the 6-man Evolution versus the Shield. This is another one that's kind of tough for me, and I think this is one we're going to disagree on. You called it for Evolution earlier. It's very close for me in my mind, but I think I'm gonna call it for the Shield.
I think that the Evolution will find a way to sneak one out here, but keep the heat on with Shield. I mean, Shield really is showing their strength, their dominance here. That whatever Evolution is throwing at them, they've been able to overcome. So they fall to Evolution at Extreme Rules just to say, you think you got one up on us, da 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 da, and then start attacking more forcefully Evolution, instead of having to defend everything Evolution's been throwing at them.
Right. Right. And I think I'm looking forward to the match either way. I think it's going to be a solid match. Um, and then the main event, the Extreme Rules match for the WWE World Heavyweight Unified Undisputed Championship of the world. Daniel Bryan defending against Kane, or I guess I should call him the Demon Kane, because that's what they keep calling him to, I guess, differentiate him from Corporate Kane, even though it's the same guy. The Demon Kane. Like, okay, I understand. Bryan versus Kane. I think Bryan's going to win that one. And I would expect it to not be a bad match. I think it'll probably be a pretty good match.
Yeah, the guys have worked together so
Yeah.
often before. They were Team Hell No about a year ago.
Yeah.
Running around, so they went up and down the road a good bit together, and they know each other well. And of course, they've already worked together a little bit while Bryan was chasing the gold, and I think it makes sense that he'd be the very first opponent that goes up against Bryan, former tag team partner, former tag team title holder with Daniel Bryan, just to turn brutal enemy, and he wants that opportunity to show Daniel Bryan that not only is he the monster, he carried the tag team, he's going to go after his gold. So yeah, I think, and Kane is a good worker. He's a great worker. He's no
absolutely.
He's no Undertaker these days. He still can actually move around and perform very well. So I think Kane will bring out a good matchup with Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan's going to bring it one way or the other, but Kane will be able to face off against him and give us a good performance, definitely.
Yeah, I agree. I think overall Kane has been one of the most underrated big men of his generation. I think when he's motivated and he shows up to work, he can really have a good match, and he's had good matches with lots of guys. He's had good. He had good matches with the Undertaker back before the Undertaker was known for having good matches with people. After about maybe WrestleMania, I don't know, 21 or so, it seemed like Taker sort of got his second wind and all of a sudden was having these great matches with guys. But up until that point, Taker was not really known as a great worker. But his matches with Kane always seemed pretty good. Okay, so that's our predictions for Extreme Rules. Obviously, we'll have to see. Well, we didn't disagree on as many this time as we have the last few times. So we'll have to see who had more of them right than wrong. But before we talk about our Legend of the Week, I do want to talk about this 50 Best Talkers list that has Dusty in such a snit. These lists, it's all a matter of taste. It's all a matter of opinion. It's just like, the top 100 movies list. There's nothing definitive about it. It's just someone's opinion. And the whole purpose of them is just to give people who care about this shit something to talk about. So there are a few things on the list. It's the original list is hosted on WWE.com. I found a copy of it on CagesideSeats.com that actually gives you just the entire 50 name list in one page, so you don't have to keep clicking over to the next one.
Next.
Yeah.
Next.
For
Next.
50. Yeah, that's a lot of fun to well, let me do this 50 fucking times. But so there are. I don't really have an argument with any of the names on the list. It's just the placement, where I might disagree. Number one is Ric Flair. That's probably going to be a pretty popular pick. If you take a poll of wrestling fans and you say who are the best promos, and you average the results, it would probably be Ric Flair. He's pretty well accepted as the best interview that there's ever been. Number two is The Rock. Again, probably a pretty fair pick. Although I wouldn't be upset if number two was Austin. I actually think Austin was a better talker than The Rock. Not that either one of them were bad by any stretch. I just prefer Austin. I just prefer Austin's style. There is one that kind of, Dusty was upset because he was number 5. And I think Dusty wanted to be number 1. And he tweeted something about how listening to his Hard Times promo is like Shakespeare or something. Dusty was really upset that he wasn't number 1 on this fucking list. But he was number 5. I don't see what's so bad about that. I do think that Jake the Snake is a little bit low. Jake on the list is number 11.
Yeah.
I can't imagine ranking Jake any lower than 2 or 3 or 4. I mean, Jake to me is like one of the most, and for me, if I was going to make my own personal list, I might put Jake at number 1. I mean, I just think Jake is amazing.
Yeah, to me, Chris Jericho is number 10.
Number 10,
and Jake Roberts is number 11. Now, here's the difference here. If you can cut a promo without actually having to physically insult your opponent or make fun of them, Chris Jericho, but you deliver a great, evil, methodical, well-thought promo without even having to say one bad thing about your opponent, but get over that you're coming after him. That is what makes a great promo. That is what Jake the Snake Roberts could do. Chris Jericho, you weren't able to do that, and I was offended that he didn't break that top 10 list.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys, a lot of the old school guys on the list, like Jake, they were from a time, they did their best promos in an era when they weren't trained to rely on catchphrases. They didn't say the same thing over and over again. They didn't try to get cute and like insult or make fun of their opponent. They just like tried to sell the match. And man, Jake was just better than in my opinion, better than anybody at doing that, especially as a heel. Some other people on the list, I think Jim Cornette is number 17. I'm a big Cornette fan. I would rather he be a little further toward the top. I think Jim Cornette is awesome.
I like Jim.
Yeah, he's great. And you know what? Macho Man is number 18. I think Macho Man was always a great promo. I would put him a little higher, too. I mean, he was crazy. He was a little incoherent, but, man, the guy was entertaining anytime he picked up a microphone.
Yeah, but I don't think I agree with you. I loved Randy Savage was my very first favorite wrestler of all time. So when I got into business, I loved the Macho Man. So he could do no wrong by my part. But you know, I reflect back on the way he spoke, and it's not overwhelmingly spectacular.
Yeah.
It was entertaining to watch, and it really was because of his mannerisms, his constantly moving around the fingers, and his gruffy voice, and his all of a sudden get up to the top of his voice. You know, he would just scream all of a sudden. They would go right back down to the level, you know. It's the way his ability to do that, which made him good at delivering.
Yeah, and he had good timing, and my favorite promo of his was one of those that he did back in the '80s when they would cut like 20 promos at a time, and he was hyping some match. I forget who it was even against, like Tito Santana or somebody he was feuding with for the Intercontinental title, like back in 1986 or '87, and he's interviewing. Mean Gene is interviewing him backstage, and they do their crazy interview, and then they finish it up, and Savage is walking away, and he's like actually gone off camera, and Mean Gene has turned back to the camera, and he says, "Macho Man Randy Savage, thank you very much." And you hear Macho from off camera yell, "You're welcome!" I just thought that was great.
There is one name that I do actually take exception to in this list, yes. And that is the man who actually, by the skin of his muscles, his huge ass muscles, made this list. And that is Mr. Scott Steiner. I flub over all my words and can't really speak the English language. Scott Steiner made this list. I don't know. I guess I didn't try hard enough because I think I'm a better talker than Scott Steiner is. You hand me a mic and I'm fucking gold. Scott Steiner to me sucks ass. I hate him.
I see some entertainment value in Steiner's promos because they're just they're so bad that they become good in a way. But
they're off the cuff. His interviews are off the cuff, so you know they're almost real.
And some of this shit, like he cut a promo, I think it was in TNA, he cut a promo where he was like doing math problems to add up like why, I think he was like he was in a handicap match or a tag team match or something. He was like doing some sort of weird math to prove that his side had the advantage, and it was just so crazy and weird that it became almost like a good promo just for how funny it was. But I mean, honestly, they have guys under contract in NXT that are way better talkers than Scott Steiner is. I mean, Sami Zayn right now could cut a promo that's a million times better than Scott Steiner's best promo that he ever cut. But yeah, I mean, there's like Nick Bockwinkel is on the list, which is cool. I always like Nick Bockwinkel.
Rick Rude's on the
Rick
list. I
Rude,
love Rick Rude.
yeah,
Yeah.
Rick Rude. Another one who's probably a little bit low actually, because Rick Rude again was an awesome talker.
Taz up at 38. Now Taz, I don't know. Maybe he didn't really have a whole lot of opportunity to speak when he was wrestling, but as soon as he got behind that microphone and commentating, he developed this like great personality, and he's to me probably one of the best commentators today. And being ranked at 38, I think Taz is now these days a much better talker than that.
Yeah, I thought Taz was a decent talker back in his day. You know, yeah, not like one of the all-time greats, but I think he was solid. You know, Triple H is at 19. I think that's a little high. I wouldn't say Triple H is a bad talker by any stretch of the imagination, but I mean, come on, is Triple H really a better promo than Jerry Lawler? I mean, Jerry Lawler is one of the great talkers that there's ever been. Is Triple H really a better promo than Terry Funk?
It's better than Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, Shawn Michaels, I never really thought Shawn Michaels was that great of a promo. Shawn Michaels is probably high.
I'm playing favorites. I'm sorry. You're right. You're right here. But Jesse Ventura, he's better than Jesse Ventura. Come on.
Yeah, or Raven. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I don't know. Like, I wouldn't have a problem with Triple H being on the list. Because I mean, I think there are some people who talk like Triple H was like one of the worst promos ever. I don't think that. I think he's a good talker. He's always very comfortable when he's on the microphone, and that's like a big deal for me. If a guy feels like he's comfortable and he's confident and he knows what he's saying, and Triple H is definitely there. But yeah, I mean, Michael Hayes, Nick Bockwinkel, Raven, Jesse Ventura, Jerry Lawler, Million Dollar Man, Terry Funk. These are all guys that are below Triple H on this list. Like, that's just nuts. There's no way. Harley Race. There's no way that fucking Triple H is a better promo than Harley Race. But again, it's just a matter of opinion. It's just, that's the point, is just give us something to talk about and give wrestling fans something to bitch about. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what Dusty's problem is. He was number 5. And it's not like the 4 guys they put ahead of him are all great. The 4 guys ahead of Dusty Rhodes on the list are Austin, Piper, Rock, and Flair. I mean, it's not like, you know, they put fucking Bret Hart ahead of Dusty Rhodes on the promo list. I mean,
yeah, he should have like 5. What are you talking about? My 5? Wait, 4, 3, 2, 1. You know, they don't that bad. I ain't had nothing to bitch about. Forget it.
Yeah. You think like someone just...
real bad, dude.
It's like he didn't even look at the list. Like someone just tweeted him and said, "Dusty, they put up a list of the best promos on the website," and Dusty was like, "Am I number 1, baby?" And the guy was like, "No, Dusty, you're not number 1." And he was like, "Man, fuck that shit," and he just went off. And he didn't even care like who number 4 through 1 was. He was like, "The American Dream should be number 1, baby." If you will.
You haven't heard the American Dream is dead. Don't start that shit on Facebook. I meant that as, you know, a metaphor.
Yeah, right.
Dusty Rhodes' American Dream is still alive.
Who trying to say the American Dream is dead?
I didn't say that. You didn't hear it out of me. It's purely speculation.
I died of food poisoning because I have wined and dined with kings and queens, and I have slept in alleys and dined on pork and beans, and the pork and beans was bad, baby. Okay, well, anyway, this is actually a decent segue into our legend segment because number 48 on the all-time great talkers list is the guy, Doc, that you have chosen to talk about for our legend this week, the Boogie Woogie Man, Jimmy Valiant.
Yeah, baby, the Boogie Woogie Man, handsome Jimmy Valiant, baby. I love this guy because I have gotten to know him over the last 10 years or so. He comes up almost every year and works with us at CPW, and he's coming up again this year, May 10th, to the Berkeley County Fairgrounds for Championship Pro Wrestling. He is going to be taking on the Masked Assassin again for I don't know how many times in another mask versus hair match. And this is I don't know how many times I've seen this match, the mask versus hair match, because I don't think Jimmy's ever lost his hair, but I don't know how many different assassins have ended up losing their mask in a match like this. So, but that's really going to be exciting. Jimmy the Boogie Woogie Man, I love this guy because he's been wrestling. He's been in this business for 50 freaking years. He's the only male wrestler in the United States who can claim that he has wrestled over 5 different decades. And that is something to say. Now, if you've seen Boogie Woogie Man, the man is absolutely entertaining, but he does show that he is up over 70 years old. But he is probably one of the best workers, greatest talkers, one of the best teachers you could ever come across. I love this man. If you ever get an opportunity to meet Boogie Woogie Man Jimmy Valiant, you go definitely check him out. He is very warm and friendly with the fans, so you definitely got to meet this man if you get an opportunity. But let me talk a little bit about him. You may know him from his days in Worldwide Wrestling Federation. He was known as Handsome Jimmy Valiant, and he had formed a team with Johnny Valiant, and they would dominate mostly the tag team scene while they were there. And he also actually at one point wrestled in the AWA, where he was managed by one of the other better talkers on that list, Bobby the Brain Heenan. He actually went into the WWF as a babyface, but that wasn't really working, so he quickly switched to heel. And after a while, he was getting some title matches against like Pedro Morales, and he also teamed up like short term with Chief Jay Strongbow. Like I said, he held the tag team belts on many occasions. He played a huge role down in the Memphis area in Jerry Lawler's area. You probably heard a lot of that. That's where the whole Masked Assassins and gimmicks came in. And he, at that point, created his Boy from New York City persona. And if you've ever seen the Boogie Woogie Man, you can tell by his theme music comes on, because it's like doom 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 doom. Ooh, come on, talk about the boy from New York City. Talk about the man with old man titties. Oh, did I say that out loud? I'm sorry.
The man's a legend.
Hey, he's been in the business forever, and if he can't take a rib by now, I am so sorry. But he actually created a song that he sings that was called "The Ballad of Handsome Jimmy." You probably find that on YouTube somewhere. And that was during his feud down there with Jerry Lawler, and he used to team up with Bill Dundee. But he mainly wrestles on independent promotions these days. He has the Boogie Woogie School camp up there. I can't exactly remember where it is, but I know a lot of wrestlers go up there. They're official graduates from the Boogie Woogie camp. So he's still training to this day and getting around. So that was 2 cents. I don't want to go too deep. I just wanted to share some of my personal memories with the Boogie Woogie Man. So May 10th, I'll be working with him again. 50 years in the business. The man deserves a ton of respect, and I love him. So back to you, Steve.
He really is a legend, man. I mean, I remember last year I got to see him. I went to one of your CPW shows in West Virginia, and the featured match was Jimmy Valiant and Ricky Morton versus the Masked Assassins. And that is one of those like things, if you're a wrestling fan, you know, like how many Masked Assassins have there been, and like how many times have they done the you know, loser unmasks match. And I mean, it's one of those little like urban legends about pro wrestling that, you know, it's just every indie show, every independent company that's been around long enough to do it has probably run like a Masked Assassins, you know, unmasking match. It's just one of those weird gimmicks that just...
They are the hardest working guys in the independent business, I tell you. Those Masked Assassins are crazy. They get around everywhere. Hey, who's playing Doink tonight?
They work a lot. They get booked a lot. But yeah, Jimmy Valiant, and seeing Jimmy Valiant, I mean, seeing Ricky Morton was awesome too. But Jimmy Valiant, I mean, that guy is literally a living legend. Like you said, he's been wrestling. He's wrestled in 5 decades. He was a huge star in the 70s. He worked everywhere, and a terrific worker, a terrific talker. I mean, just one of the real living legends of pro wrestling. And even though he is of an advanced age and he doesn't really do a whole lot in the ring, just as a wrestling fan, to get to see him, to get to see a legend like that live is just something special. I mean, if you ever get a chance to see that, you know, just to say you saw it, just to say you saw, you know, oh, I saw Mickey Mantle play baseball. You know, it doesn't matter if he sucked. You saw it. You know, you saw Jimmy Valiant, you saw Ricky Morton wrestle.
I saw Charlie Brown from out of town.
Absolutely,
Woo!
absolutely, yes. On the first ever Starcade, Jimmy Valiant as Charlie Brown from out of town. Yeah, so just one of the great legends ever, and an awesome pick for our legend this week.
And if you want to know more about Jimmy Valiant, make sure you pick up his personal book called Woo! Mercy Daddy. Welcome to my world, the Jimmy Valiant story. Make sure you pick that up.
Yeah, and actually, if you go to that CPW show on May 10th, you might be able to find it at the merch table.
Yeah, he'll probably bring his book along and sell an autograph for you.
Yeah, he'll gladly sell you a copy. Awesome legend. Well, let's wrap this up, Doc. Let's save a little bit for next week, shall we?
Sure.
This weekend is Extreme Rules. We talked about our picks. I think it's going to be a good show. Extreme Rules traditionally has been an okay show, even if it hasn't been booked really well. I mean, the WWE's roster at this point has enough talent that, I mean, a good show can break out at any moment. I mean, even if like the storylines are kind of weak, the wrestlers are capable if they're motivated and if they're booked properly. They can put on, in terms of match quality, a really strong show. And I think that's what's going to happen at Extreme Rules. So I'm looking forward to it. And we'll be back next week to talk about that, to talk about the night after episode of Raw, to talk about whatever the hell else is going on. Another Legend of the Week, obviously. So we're going to wrap it up for this week. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Doc, thanks, as always, for joining me.
Oh, yeah, and by the way,
yes.
I just wanted to say, for those who don't already know, if you are interested in getting Extreme Rules, it will not be available on Dish Network or DirecTV. Will not be offering this show at this point. You're going to have to get it on the network. So if you want to watch Extreme Rules, just to let people know that if you don't know it already. I just wanted to add that before I sign out. But yes, Steve, it's been great. I appreciate another great show. I'm glad I got to make it. I'm glad that I wasn't abducted or had to do any abductions this week. And and I look forward to seeing everybody back here again next Tuesday at 4 p.m. for the Wrestling with Wrestling.
Yes. See you guys. Thanks for watching.